Let's go! Let's go!
These are bots, and yes, they are setting up for a long A rush. Yes, they are throwing setup grenade throws. And yes, they did just fake it and rushed short instead. This is what it's all been leading to, what Bez the Bot Whisperer's vision has been all about, all along. Bots which are actually fun to play with and against. How has he managed this witchcraft? There are many tricks and exploits that he's used to achieve this, but a turning point came with Guardian Game Mode. Because in order to create this mode, Valve was forced to add new bot support and features so that they were actually good enough to be able to play this game mode. Bez has got a load of these new behaviours and has attempted to apply them to a regular game mode instead. While this new AI is a net positive, these new bot behaviours do have a number of limitations that the old AI didn't, which Bez has had to figure out creative fixes for. Things like how they can no longer pick up weapons, and how they no longer know which team they're on. More on that later. At this point, Bez probably knows more about bots than any other person does. He probably knows more than any one Valve employee does, because just like the source engine itself, the AI behind these bots goes back almost 2 decades. In that time, many of the programmers who designed them in the first place have left, and many others have come along, added stuff to them and broken them in new ways ever since. Bez has essentially collected all of that knowledge, sometimes from updates, other times from leaks, and sometimes from Valve employees directly. And he's put all this knowledge to good use by updating the Valve Dev bot page with what he's learned, and by applying it to what you can see here, so that you too can have fun playing with and against bots, either on your own or with friends. What fascinated me about his bot story were the challenges that he faced and the clever workarounds he devised, along with how he had to mask their weaknesses in silly ways. For instance, bots have their memory wiped at the start of every round. This is done so that they're no longer fixated on an enemy that they saw at long A the round before or anything like that. But it turns out they also have their memory wiped at the end of every round, so when you hear that guy saying, "Counter-terrorists win," every bot on the map will suddenly forget where they are and what they're doing. If this happens and there aren't any enemies left alive, then that's fine. Bez makes it so that the remaining characters will just casually run about inspecting their weapons and stuff. Yep, despite not coding support for many essential bot actions, Valve did take the time to let them inspect their weapons. However, if there is an enemy left somewhere in the level at the end of the round, then this mind wipe presents a problem, because suddenly all bots in the level forget where the enemies may or may not be. So to play it safe, Bez has got them to rush to the nearest hiding spot and to camp there until the next round begins. He tells me that even this is flawed, because while they know where the hiding spots are, they don't know if they're that well hidden. They wouldn't even know if there was an enemy there already, which could lead to some rather dank encounters. Bez has encountered severe limitations when adding even the simplest of features. Like I said previously, Guardian Game Mode bots don't know which team they're on. But Bez has to use this AI for all their other benefits, so he needed to figure out a way of telling bots which side they were on. And he managed this by getting them to detect if they start the round near a T or CT spawn point, and they use that entity to dictate which team they're on. This has allowed Bez to get the otherwise superior Guardian Mode AI working in other game modes as well. Also, these bots can't move while jumping. The moment a jump initiates, their movement buttons are disabled until they hit the ground again, which means they really struggle to jump up onto things like crates and to climb over low cover. Now Bez has deployed a really dirty fix for this. If they're jumping and their movement speed is low, then the game will subtly push them forwards, which should help them to get onto whatever ledge is currently in front of them. It's a dirty fix, it's cheating, but at the same time it's still the most elegant solution to a really stupid problem. Probably the coolest thing about the new bot behaviours is the setup grenade throws. This makes the bots better at Dust 2 than I am. Bots can't do running grenade throws because they struggle to run in straight lines, but they can do grenade throws standing still, crouched, or even jumping. Bez has devised a table of coordinates and angles to pull these things off, and if a bot passes close to one of these spots and has the equipment on hand to pull it off, there is a chance that they might do it. Other bots around them will wait for these actions to be pulled off before continuing with their attack. Getting bots to coordinate with each other can sometimes get broken. If a player joins the game and takes control of one of the bots required for a setup throw, then the other bots could be left waiting indefinitely. And given how easy it is for solid players to block each other, Bez has had to enable unsolid teammates in order for their AI to work unhindered. He says that Valve did add a check to see if a bot's desired movement has been carried out successfully, but this doesn't really care if they did or didn't achieve it, only that it was ever possible in the first place. And it's these slightly broken commands that have given him the most problems. One such example of a broken command is the action hide, which gets them to hide in a particular spot. Now he couldn't figure out why this command wasn't working, and it was only thanks to a Valve employee explaining to him it's because there's a maximum working distance for this command, which is set to 1 unit by default, which is about an inch, meaning that they wouldn't carry it out if they were further from a hiding spot than an inch away. Problem is, the game will never even inform you that it's an option that you can use. Bez suspected that such an option existed, but couldn't figure out the correct naming to get it working since there's no standardization to the script names in CSGO. He tried distance, distance_max, cutoff_distance, when the magical solution was actually to type max_range, and then a number greater than 1 to get this to work. Had he not been given this information by a Valve employee, there's nothing else he could have done to figure this out other than to guess the name of this command forevermore. Bots won't always work together to carry out an objective. He says that they could, but said that when testing it, it was a bit boring because he knew the moment they smoked long, there would be a long A rush. So it's far more interesting to play against bots who may smoke long and then go short instead, or where there might be a flash in B tunnels, but the bomb carrier is actually on short heading towards A instead. So this is something that probably makes the bot teams a bit weaker, but this is offset by how much more fun it is to play against so many different variations of attacks and strategies that they can pull off. And it is, from my experience, a lot more how matchmaking games are played. How bots behave in combat depends on whether or not they're being covered by teammates. If they're on their own, then they'll engage an enemy they spot who's shooting at them, but if the bomb carrier's teammates are right behind them, then the bomb carrier may proceed to the site and attempt to plant, even if he's still under fire. One thing that Bez likes about Valve's own bots is their ability to fake plant. If the bomb carrier is alone, then there's something like a 50% chance that they'll start the bomb plant, and then will switch to their primary weapon to see if an enemy will pop out from behind cover. But this behaviour does mean there's a chance they'll never actually plant, and will instead just carry out a string of fake plants until the timer runs out. The chance of that happening quickly becomes very unlikely, but there is still a chance. I noticed that bots would switch to their pistol if they ran out of ammo. This is something that Bez has done that he thinks has greatly improved their attacking AI. He also tries to get them to hide before reloading, but this too has had to be done in a bit of a hacky way, and they may rush to a hiding spot that's already occupied by an enemy. Here is the bomb carrier being spotted by 2 CTs. But guess what? They don't know this guy's the bomb carrier. And no, it isn't just because the bomb is hidden on his back. They don't know because the game actually puts all carried entities, the bomb included, at the character's feet, which in this instance will be obstructed by this low wall just here. Even if he's carrying the bomb in his hands, the real bomb will still be down here, out of sight and out of mind. But this means that the CTs are absolutely shite at spotting and tracking where the bomb carrier is, because it's always getting hidden behind stuff, like low-flying shrubs and the ground itself. So Bez came up with a mind-blowing solution. He created yet another bomb entity, this time inside the character's head, which makes it a lot more visible and easier for the CTs to track. Another related problem, which Bez has since fixed, was that there used to be an issue when players took control of a bot, because all entities previously attached to that bot remained where the bot's feet were. This means the player's teammates wouldn't recognise the player as the new bomb carrier, and they'd huddle about the spot where the bot spirit left his body like a weird ritual until the round ended. The reason for this is I don't know and nobody does. It's lost knowledge, like the pyramids. The AI in CSGO is rubbish because it's mostly based on Counter-Strike Source's AI. Apparently, later games like Left 4 Dead and Team Fortress 2 had much better AI that could navigate larger levels and messier terrain more easily. But unfortunately, since CSGO is based on CSS, it comes with all sorts of issues, like the nav mesh generation being unable to calculate it for a map as large as a dangerzone one, so it instead has to do it in lots of separate 2048 unit chunks. Yet another unnecessary complication, born out of Source's age and complex developmental history. Bez still isn't sure what bots would report to the player about before. They silently communicate with one another, but when they hear an enemy, he thinks they only mentioned it to players if they heard gunshots. They now mention if they hear footsteps as well. Bez tried to get AI to call out the locations of enemies that they could hear, but this caused problems. If they called out where themselves were stood, it was fine. But if they tried calling out where the enemies they heard were stood, they'd successfully call out the location, but then would get stuck in the endless loop of crying, "I need help," over and over again.
Need some help here! Need some help!
Need some help!
And this carried on until the next round began. This was obviously too annoying for Bez to tolerate, so he tried getting them to say the place name instead. Unfortunately, they can only call out places featured in the bot chatter.tb file, and this being from Counter-Strike Source, it's severely outdated and lacking many modern place names. But fortunately, this was one of the easier things for Bez to fix, who was able to simply add the new place names to that file. He says the IDF and Elite crew models have voice commands for most places on Dust 2, making them ideal as the backbone models for bot games on this particular map. Bez has created a load of custom characters. He will use some of the more exotic models, and he's even got it that they use alternative weapons, like the M4A1S. This is all done in a very hacky way, but knowing what we know about the bots in this game, that's a given at this point, isn't it? For the Guardian matches on DZ County, Bez thinks Valve faced a few unique problems, which they used their developer powers to overcome in dank ways. Bez thinks that because the doors on that map were unbreakable, this game mode suffered from players blocking bots repeatedly by closing the doors in their faces. Unable to think of a better solution, Valve simply made it so that when bots spawn on that map, all doors are permanently forced open to prevent navigational woes. The other hack Valve deployed was even better. They added a throw utility bot command, which got Bez super excited, thinking they'd finally added proper support for bots throwing grenades and stuff. But it wasn't that. It was a command to get one of the bots to spawn dozens of already thrown smoke grenades, spawn straight up in the sky so that they showered down around the map automatically. That's right, bots have all kinds of hacks and access to console commands. They could instantly teleport to any point in the map if they wanted to do so. They can drop themselves weapons even if they don't have the money, which they only abuse for Guardian game mode, which Bez suspects is because otherwise they'd be cash starved in later waves, which wouldn't be right because those later waves are meant to be the hardest ones. So right now the game mode is functional, but there are a lot more features that he wants to add to it. Stuff like making it so that a bot team low on funds will all agree to eco for a round, or for a bot with surplus funds to drop a gun to a player. I was listening to all these things wondering why he hadn't done them all already, because they all sounded incredible, but he told me that he had done these things already, that it was just the wrong way to go about adding it. An earlier version of his bot project had so many cool little touches, yet because he had neglected the bigger picture, their behaviours often broke and were difficult to bug test. What he's done with this latest version is to put all those cool little touches on hold for now, and to focus on getting the AI to navigate the world properly and to use setup grenade throws to give them the edge. Because it turns out it's this sort of stuff that matters most when you're playing with or against bots. The rest will come later and in a matter that's easier for him to playtest for errors. But it's not there yet. So for now, he's just focusing on getting bots right on Dust 2, because once he's got that framework in place, it will be much easier just to copy paste all the custom stuff over to other maps as well. He intends to give the bot teams more different kinds of behaviours than to simply rush everywhere, and to further build on the number of grenade throws they can do as they travel through the map. He doesn't think that supporting hostage mode will pose too many problems for him. It is, after all, where his bot improvement project started out in the first place. Of all the hostage maps, he wants to get improved bots working for Insertion 2 first. He even thinks that getting bots working in Danger Zone mode would be possible, were it not for a couple of infuriating shortcomings. He thinks that Valve tested this game mode with bots, since they added support for them to automatically pick a perk at the beginning of a Danger Zone match. And while bots can be made to run to the nearest weapon crate in the level and to bash them open, Guardian game mode bots can't pick weapons up. They can only use what they're spawned with, and that is all, even if there's a far superior weapon right by their feet. They can't use the tablet in Danger Zone mode either, so won't be able to use their money to buy stuff without being in a proper buy zone. Now I suggested to Bez that he could just hack the system so that bots spawn themselves weapons and stuff, and it probably wouldn't be that noticeable, but he tells me he doesn't want to do this. The whole point of this bot project is to get it working without cheating in this sort of way. To him, it's all about overcoming the challenges with bots and about making them behave in the most human-like ways possible, and he says that spawning themselves weapons and equipment in Danger Zone would work against all of that. Remember when everybody was spamming radio commands, making their player scream in confused, pained ecstasy? It was great fun, but also very annoying. Valve eventually fixed this by blanket disabling all player radio commands, and this was devastating for Bez, who had loved that feature for how it gave character to different agents. He was telling me that Mr. Mulik is a confident leader and will attempt all kinds of complex words despite his poor English skills, whereas Romanov is more impulsive in his decision making, changing his strats on the whim. This is a topic that's worth its own video at some point, but just know that there is more depth to the agent personalities than meets the eye, and when Valve killed the spoken radio commands dead, it almost did the same to Bez's project, and it sapped a lot of his motivation to work on it. Many challenges Bez has had to overcome could easily be fixed on Valve's end, but aren't required for what they're doing with the game, so probably will never be fixed. And while there are some limitations Bez thinks he'll never be able to overcome, he does think there's enough flexibility with the system to get this bot project up to a really solid and fun level. After many hurdles and setbacks, he's back on track, and the first version of his project will be out right now for you to subscribe to from the workshop. It's exactly how Dust 2 is already, but just with extra entities and vscripts that Bez has injected into the files. It is only Dust 2, and only contains the important essentials. Once the groundwork is in place, it will be quick and easy to roll out support for other maps as well. So see this as a sort of beta, but one that's been many years in the making. Give it a go, give him some feedback, and join his Discord, and he's hoping that with something now out, it'll give him the motivation that he needs to progress further with this project.